Hmm. Hello all, welcome back to my YouTube channel. It's been a minute. It's been a minute. That is so crazy. It's been quite some time. Yeah. I don't have an explanation. I'm not gonna give you one either. My name is Bert Alexander, and today's video, I wish I could say I left you waiting all this time to bring you back this amazing music analysis video. Not today. Today's video is something that's a little bit more personal to me, and hopefully you find it inspirational. Hopefully you take something from it. I don't know. Today I will be talking about my story as a stroke survivor, and it's something that I've been wanting to talk about on this channel. It's actually the whole reason why I created this YouTube channel years ago. And I just never, I don't want to say, I had definitely at the time, I just guess I couldn't find the courage to sit and actually talk about it. But today, it is my birthday, and 28, so I'm like, girl, I'm kind of running out of time here. So, yeah, I think it's time. I think I'm ready to speak about it, and I'll get into maybe why I've been so hesitant in the past. I've actually recorded this video a few times, so if you're watching it, it's like the first time that I've actually recorded it and posted it. So without further ado, I'll just go ahead and I guess jump on right in it. So 16 years ago, not to the date, but 16 years ago in 2006, I was diagnosed with having an AVM, an arteriovenous malformation. And the way that even came about is I was literally just having fun with my friends, and was playing around. All of a sudden I passed out, and next thing I know, I'm in a hospital a week later being surrounded by everybody, and I'm like, girl, what's going on? And that's when they did a bunch of CT scans. I was in like a medically induced coma for like a week, and they found out that I had an AVM. I'll go ahead and put a link in the description so you can get like the real definition of it. But in layman's terms, essentially an AVM is a rare birth defect. It can go unnoticed your whole life, and it can happen anywhere in the body. And essentially it is a cluster of deformed blood vessels that essentially are very high risk, and they're very susceptible to bursting. Now, you can see how that can be an issue depending on where it is in the body. Some people have AVMs in their legs, they may burst, they never know it's a big old bruise. Mine happened to be on my brainstem. And on that day that I passed out, that day that they found out that I did have an AVM, was the day that it burst. Now, prior to that, I had spent years having this like very, very intense headaches. There would be times where, we thought it was just migraines, where it would just be so crippling to the fact that I would literally just have to like sit down. I, to this day, have never felt pain that much. Well, until, we'll get to when I felt more pain. But those headaches used to be so painful, to the point where like it would make me nauseous. I was like, what, 9, 10, 11 whenever these headaches were happening. So just imagine like a really rambunctious child just like being stopped to a halt because of some headaches. Yeah, they were like very intense. It's so interesting too, because the year prior I was admitted into the hospital with what they thought was meningitis. To this day, they didn't know for sure if it was meningitis. They did a spinal tap, and the results were inconclusive. And it's so interesting, because it was the day that I got released that I was supposed to have a CAT scan, a CT scan, or an MRI. Essentially, like they would have discovered the AVM before it had burst, and maybe had done some like preventive care, but this was not in the cards for me. So, and because of the location of the AVM, the doctors in my home state of Louisiana did not feel comfortable operating, and the only way to remove it would be possibly through radiation or chemotherapy, I believe, and surgery. Because of the intensity of the malformation, radiation, I believe, was not an option for me, so it needed to be removed. And the doctors in Louisiana did not feel prepared enough to do such a high-risk surgery, and ended up flying me out to Phoenix, Arizona, to the Barrel Neurological Institute, where I met with specialists who would be in charge of, removing my AVM. Honestly, as a child, that was like a really cool experience because I had to like fly like a private jet because like I was in the hospital and they needed to like continue to monitor me. So that was like my first time like riding like in a private jet. So so cool as a kid, like looking back, it's like, ooh, look at me on a private jet. So we flew private to on a medical flight to Phoenix, Arizona, where I would have 2 surgeries, an embolism and then vitrectomy, where they would essentially just remove it. The embolism was to essentially they were essentially supposed to put glue in the veins, and in order to like stop the blood flow, and if that worked, it would keep me from having the invasive surgery where they would remove it. But embolism did not work. It was after that first surgery, that first embolism, that I ended up having a stroke as a complication of the surgery. How old was I? 2006. I was 12 years old. Well, was I even 12 then? No, I wasn't. I was 11 years old, turning 12 that year in May. Yeah, I went from being, an able-bodied, rambunctious child to not even being able to move fingers and toes. And I mean, it was so funny too. Not funny, but in hindsight now it's funny because after the surgery, I mean, honestly, it had been like a month since I was in the hospital. So I had gotten to the routine of just being in bed and not knowing essentially what's going on. I was a child, right? I have all these doctors like working on me. But I didn't understand the severity of what had happened, because like I felt like I was in pain, and I had a breathing tube down my throat, and that wasn't the first time I've had like a breathing tube down my throat, because like I said, in Louisiana they had to put me in a medically induced coma. So I was used to that, but I didn't realize, I just thought, I don't know what I was thinking, but I just thought, I was like, oh, this is just like a part of the surgery. It wasn't until like 2 days after that I heard my mom talk on the phone, and she was telling her friend or one of my family members that I had a stroke, and I was like banging on the thing, mind you, because I had like the breathing tube, so I couldn't speak, but I was just like, I had a stroke. Like, it was just very surreal to me, because at the time I didn't realize that children my age could even have a stroke. It was in that moment I was like, oh, wow. Yeah, so, and due to that complication and due to me having the stroke, it completely changed the whole course of my surgery. I was not able to get my AVM removed. I still had my AVM. So I ended up spending a week in ICU in Phoenix until I was able to be, sustained enough to take that medical flight back to Louisiana. And it was in there where I enrolled in inpatient therapy for about a month. It was at Children's Hospital in New Orleans, and I essentially spent an extra month and a half in Children's Hospital going through various forms of therapy. Mostly physical therapy and occupational therapy, but I also had speech therapy and a bunch of other different things. The majority of my time was a regimen of physical and occupational therapy. The goal was to teach me how to walk again, yeah. It was real crazy not being able to move, not being able to do the things that I was normally used to doing, I guess you could say. Yeah, it was a very hard, very vigorous month of inpatient therapy. I really just wanted to get out of the hospital. I was just like, I've been in the hospital for 2 months. I'm ready to get back to school. As nerdy as that sounds, I want to get back to school. I want to get back to my friends. Just a very intense experience. And I guess you could imagine for a child that's 11 years old. So I ended up spending the rest of that year in a wheelchair and continuing outpatient therapy. But by the miracle of God, and I guess by my strong determination to get out that wheelchair, I did teach myself how to walk again. The terrible thing is, though, unfortunately, I had to go back the summer of 2007 back to Phoenix to do the whole thing all over again, right? And that was pretty nerve-wracking. That was actually very nerve-wracking because of the progress that I had made. I couldn't even do things like button my shirt. And I wasn't even able to keep my neck up straight. Didn't have the muscle strength to keep my neck up. At this point though, I was determined to, you know, get this thing and, you know, get this chapter, you know, over my life so I can just, you know, be done with it. Going back to the surgery, 2007, as you can see, things went well. They did the two-part surgery again, the embolism. The next day they went ahead and removed the surgery. You can see, I think you can see, but I have this cool scar on my neck. That is a marker from the surgery that, you know, I have for life now. It's a cool scar. I think it looks cool. I've gotten compliments on it. So after that, I had to fly back again to Louisiana, go to inpatient therapy for about a month as well. Just, you know, the brainstem, if you aren't aware, it's in charge of like all your motor functions. So right, of course the AVM had to be in the most like inconvenient place ever. Like the brainstem is in charge of like just like your daily functions. So even though I didn't have a stroke, because they had been in that area of my brain, I had to go and essentially relearn how to walk again, and do occupational therapy. And of course that was complicated by the stroke that I had the year prior. But yeah, after I did my inpatient therapy, did some more outpatient therapy, and here I am today, 16 years later, talking about it. And wow, what a journey it has definitely been. And it's so interesting too, because you would imagine that as a child you would not want to go through something like that, but if I had to have this experience in my life, I'm actually very grateful that I was a child when it happened. I don't know, it's just like the whole innocence of like being young and like, you know, not necessarily knowing the true severity of like, you know, the consequences and, you know, the things that you're going through. I had this sort of like, I guess, naiveness about it, like, oh, I was just gonna like do the hospital thing and it'll just get better, and, you know, it'll, you know, I was just determined to really just to get out of that circumstance and get better. And as an adult, I don't know, if something like that happened to me, I would be broken. Like, I would probably like be so depressed. And now, mind you, I definitely had my, depression, especially after dealing with, being disabled permanently. But as an adult, I feel like I would not have snapped back as quick as I did. And yeah, so if I had to do something, if I had to go through an experience like this in my life, I'm actually very grateful that it happened when it happened, and being surrounded by the people and the love and the family that I was surrounded by. Yeah, of course, with the surgery and the diagnosis and the removal, yada yada yada, that was something in itself, right? That was an experience in itself, but I didn't realize at the time as a child the profound effects that being disabled would bring me. I always had in my mind, because we spoke to the doctor, was because they were really just surprised at how fast I had recovered from the stroke and from the effects of the stroke, and they were always like, yeah, you might be at 100% one day, and so I was just like, oh sure, I just got to keep on working and I'll be at 100% normal, that didn't happen. It was always a possibility that wouldn't happen, but in my mind, for the longest, I was just determined to get back to being 100%. And it was a time really in college, really, where I just had to really face the facts that, this is how you're going to live your life. I don't want to get too, maybe we can even split this video up because it's going to be very long, but just coming to terms with being disabled. I know it sounds kind of crazy, right? It's just because by college, I had the surgery, 2006. I went to college in 2012. It had been 6 years. But when I tell you, it wasn't until college where I truly realized, I'm oh, you're disabled and you're going to live a very different life. And I think it had something to do with that because I was from a very I don't want to say small town, but it was a very, very, you know, smaller town within a big city in Louisiana, Prairieville. And, you know, all of my friends, everyone that I went to school with knew my story, knew what I had, you know, been through. A lot of my friends that knew me prior to having the stroke, so I didn't have to explain anything, and you know, I guess they just saw me as same old Bert. But it wasn't until I went to college where I had to like make new friends, and I was just like, oh, I am being treated differently. I'm just like looking around like, girl, who wouldn't want to hang out with me? Why am I being treated, you know, this way? I'm a good fun time. And it was really like in, you know, those moments in college where I, again, had to meet these people, meet new people for the first time, where I really felt like, oh, wow, I have to live life differently. That was actually a very difficult time for me. And, you know, I'm still processing, you know, living life as being disabled. There was even a sense of shame about it. I would often try to like hide the effects of my disability, try to mask it. Whenever I'd like meet new people, I still sometimes catch myself like doing that. I'd be like, girl, stop that. Babe, stop that. You gotta live your life. You gotta live your life. You gotta live your truth. And yeah, those were a very, very hard 4 years, and spilled over into my adult life whenever I was still trying to like find a job and realizing that, you know, trying to get a job and get a career started being disabled was a challenge in itself. And I don't know, I guess I just was not prepared for that. But I'm a Brazilian one. I'm a Brazilian one. I'm a Brazilian one. But yeah, here I am, you know, on my 28th birthday, celebrating life. I have a really great career. I have a really great social life. I've even gotten my fitness together, as you can see. And yeah, it's just a lot to celebrate, and I don't take for granted the story and the challenges that I overcome. I mean, and I say this very humbly, I am probably one of the hardest working people that I know. The challenges and things that I've overcome, you know, it's profound, I guess. So this is what being a stroke survivor looks like. And I guess the biggest question really is, you know, why now? Like, why make this video now? And I don't know. Like I said, I've in the past tried to make this video multiple times, and something just kept me from editing the video and posting it. I don't know. I think it was a sense of, well, first of all, this is very intimate, right? This is very exposing, very raw. So, and I do like to keep, you know, things to myself. But it was a point where I realized that like a lot of my closest friends don't even know like my story, or like know about, you know, why or how my disability came about. And it's not because I don't think they want to know, but it's just like, how do you even ask? And then on my end as well, I didn't even know how to talk about it. So now I feel comfortable sharing, now I feel comfortable talking about it, discussing it openly, very proud to be disabled and to overcome the things that I've done. And I think the timing is just right. And you know, it's coming into a new chapter into my life. Like I said, I have a stable career now. And also too, I honestly want to share my testimony, want to share my story, because when I have shared it with people, it has, you know, had such a profound effect. I'm trying to tear up. I remember I was driving Uber back when I first moved to California. I was doing Uber, and one of the customers that I picked up, one of my passengers, he was disabled, and I had to like help him with his groceries. And knowing as a stroke survivor myself, I saw the symptoms, and so we had a discussion. And he had told me that he had recently had a stroke, and you know, he was just telling me the difficulties that he was facing as like he has new challenges, you know, to live his life now. You know, doing things like going to the grocery store is like a task. It's physically laborious, it's emotionally laborious just to go get groceries. Yeah, so we were just having a conversation. I let him know that I too had a stroke, you know, when I was 11 years old, and you know, his eyes lit up. He was just like, oh my God, you're doing so well for yourself. And you know, it was just like, oh my god, that makes me feel so much better. Like seeing an example of somebody who has survived the stroke and doing well for themselves. And I was like, yeah, you know, I was giving him, you know, a pep talk and letting him know that, you know, just because you had a stroke does not mean that your life has to end. Sure, that, you know, it's going to be affected and it's going to be a very different life that you live now, but it doesn't have to be the end of it, and you can still find happiness, and, you know, do the things that you want to do with it. You know, you just gotta, you know, multiple ways to skin a chicken, child. So, you know, there's just, and you just gotta go about life doing it. And it felt really good, telling him that and seeing his whole demeanor change. Anyway, I said I wouldn't cry. So that felt really good. So who knows? There might be more people out there who have just recently had a stroke or are a stroke survivor, and, you know, need to see, you know, the possibilities of, you know, what one can do. I'm very grateful for my journey, and my story is unique. I think it's definitely made me a stronger individual. I think it's made me, I don't like to take things for granted, and here we are. So very glad and happy to finally have this off my chest. I don't know, I feel like I've been like carrying this burden too. That's another thing. It's just like I had to like release this burden of, like, I don't like to think I hide that I'm disabled, but I know that a lot of people don't realize it or don't know me as being disabled, or don't know why I'm disabled, or yeah. So I'm just like, woo, girl, it's out in the open. It's out in the open now. But yeah, I mean, I want to use my channel more to talk about, like, the difficulties of being disabled. I want to have more open discussions about this. I mean, it is a really big part of my life. It's not the only part of my life, but it is a very, 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 very big and important part of my story and part of my journey in life. If you have any questions about my journey, the difficulties that I went through, let's have a discussion. Let's open up the forum. Comment down below. I want to thank y'all for watching. This has been a pretty emotional video, as you can tell. So I really do appreciate you all for watching and hearing my story. Be sure to share it if you think that, you know, it's a story to share. If you've been inspired by it, let me know in the comments below. Yeah, I really appreciate y'all. I want to say that I really appreciate my friends, my family, the people that surround me and uplift me, and the people that make me realize that I am a light and I am important. There have been many dark days, especially, like I said, during those times where I was really coming to terms with my disability, where I was questioning the importance of my life and if I was even, you know, up worth sometimes. And it was my friends and my family members, and again, that community around me that continued to remind me and uplift me when I would have those really negative, dangerous thoughts. And I would not be here without them. And so this video is dedicated to y'all. Honestly, this is the reason why I made this, so y'all can know. So thank you so much. And I love and appreciate you all. Anyway, thank you for watching. Subscribe. I'm not gonna promise you more videos, because every time I do that, I go through on a hiatus, so I'm not even gonna promise nothing, but I do plan to be active on this channel. So yeah, subscribe. Anyway, thank you all for watching. I love you so much. Mwah.